talks, I've gone deep into the archives and found some very nice parts, but which I'm working on at the moment, which hopefully in the future should turn up as a book on your bookshelf. But it's going to take some time, and but I was also somewhat divided. Of being, the evening, I like to read some Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's traditional, And actually, I found just here, this looks like the shortest chapter in the whole book, chapter 8 of Antya. It's only, there's 103 verses, but they're short. There's hardly any purports even. So we should be able to do that, and I'll just read them. That for part of the time, and then the rest of the time we can go into this, just some parts I've selected, what I've been working on. It's in a very rough draft, of course, at the moment, so don't hold your breath.
You know your computer, is everything right?
It's all done by hand, yeah.
The transcription?
Yeah, everything. He doesn't need to
Really?
anything.
Well, no, I gave my computer away in the end. It was too much. I couldn't cope with it mentally. Yeah. So I'll just read this now. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. The following summary of the 8th chapter of Antya Chaitanya Charitamrita is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrit Pravaha Bhasya. This chapter describes the history of the Lord's dealing with Ramchandra Puri. Although Ramchandra Puri was one of the disciples of Madhavendra Puri, he was influenced by dry Mayavadis, and therefore he criticized Madhavendra Puri. Therefore Madhavendra Puri accused him of being an offender and rejected him. Because Ramchandra Puri had been rejected by his spiritual master, he became concerned only with finding faults in others and advising them according to dry Mayavad philosophy. For this reason he was not very respectful to the Vaishnavas, and later he became so fallen that he began criticizing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for his eating. Hearing his criticisms, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reduced his eating, but after Ramchandra Puri left Jagannath Puri, the Lord resumed his usual behavior. So it's like that. He was an offender to the Lord, but actually the Lord decided to be merciful to Ramchandra Puri because he was related by marriage, after all, I think to Svarup Bhattacharya, like that. And so that was an example. Tham Bande Krishna Chaitanyam Ramchandra Puri Bhayat Lokika Haran Tashvangjo Bhikkhanam Samakochayat. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who reduced his eating due to fear of the criticism of Ramchandra Puri. That's the format, Kaviraj Goswami. Every chapter, of course, there's the introductory synopsis of the whole chapter, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writing. Then the first shloka is in the whole chapter, the subject matter of the chapter in gist. Then always in the second verse is coming this: Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Karuna Sindhu Avatar Brahma Swadika Bhaje Charana Janhar. O glorious Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the incarnation of the ocean of mercy. His lotus feet are worshipped by demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Kaviraj Goswami praying to the Panchatattva in different ways. Sometimes it's formulated in different ways, but O glories to Nityananda Prabhu, the greatest of mendicants who bound the entire world with a knot of ecstatic love for God. O glories to Advaita Prabhu, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He induced Krishna to descend and thus delivered the entire world. O glories to all the devotees headed by Srivas Thakur. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is their life and soul. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri performed his various pastimes with his devotees in the waves of love of Krishna. Then a sannyasi named Ramchandra Puri Goshai came to see Paramananda Puri and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Paramananda Puri offered respects at the feet of Ramchandra Puri and Ramchandra Puri strongly embraced him. So it says here, because Ramchandra Puri was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, both Paramananda Puri, these were the two elderly gentlemen sannyasis in Puri with Mahaprabhu, Brahmananda Bharati and Paramananda Puri. So they were like uncles or father kind of mood. Puri, they both respects to Ramchandra Puri as a disciple of their grand guru, Param Guru, Madhavendra Puri. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that although Ramchandra Puri was naturally very envious, although he was against the principles of Vaishnavism, common people nevertheless addressed him as Goswami or Goshai because he was superficially in the renounced order and dressed like a sannyasi. In the modern age, the title Goswami is used by a caste of grihastas, but formerly it was not. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, for example, were called Goswami because they were in the renounced order. Similarly, because Paramananda Puri was a sannyasi, he was called Puri Goswami. By careful scrutiny, therefore, one will find that Goswami is not the title for a certain caste. Rather, it is properly the title for a person in the renounced order. Verse 9. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also offered obeisances to Ramchandra Puri, who then embraced him and thus remembered Krishna. So even though he was very much tainted by Mayavad philosophy, but they also say Namo Narayan. They address each other like that. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also Narayan, so we can also go like that. It's like when Sri Gurudev in the Revealed Truth, is when he's talking about the Ramananda Samvad, and there, in the discussion between Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy, and then getting there towards the end, when Ramananda is saying to Mahaprabhu, "Oh, I know who you are," meaning, Krishna. And Mahaprabhu is giving some excuse, saying, "Yeah, of course, you're a pure devotee of Krishna. So you see Krishna everywhere. Why wouldn't you see him in me also?" And he said, No, don't cheat me. That don't mean like that, I mean, he means he's directly Krishna like this. And so thus it is the duty of a sannyasi to remember Krishna. According to Smriti Shastra, a sannyasi does not offer obeisances or blessings to anyone. It is said, Sannyasi nirashir niramash kriya. A sannyasi should not offer anyone blessings or obeisances. Yeah, this is of course mainly in the Smriti Shastra about karma sannyas. Because sannyas means, to be like neutral, right? Not Shochati, Nakangshati, Raga and Dvesha, to be equal to all things. So in that sense, it's not offering obeisances and also not offering blessings. So, but in Vaishnava sannyas, a little bit different. There, what's called Tridandi sannyas. Just take prasad and go on chanting Hare Krishna and doing service. I'm paraphrasing what Guru Maharaj said. So the three of them talked about Krishna for some time, and then Jagadananda came and extended an invitation to Ramchandra Puri. A large quantity of the remnants of food from Lord Jagannath was brought in for distribution. Ramchandra Puri ate sumptuously, and then he wanted to find faults in Jagadananda Pandit, which is not usually what you would tend to do. It's not with Jagadananda, because he's very feisty. After finishing the meal, Ramchandra Puri requested, "My dear Jagadananda, please listen. You eat the food that is left." Oh, you eat the food that is left. Saying like that. Okay. With great eagerness, Ramchandra Puri seated Jagadananda Pandit and personally served him prasadam. Encouraging him again and again, Ramchandra Puri fed him sumptuously. But when Jagadananda had washed his hands and mouth, Ramchandra Puri began criticizing him. Just see. Shun. Chaitanya gan kare bahut bhakan satya sevaka shakha dekilun ekan. I've heard, he said, that the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eat more than necessary. Now I've directly seen that this is true. Shanashire ita khaywana khari dharma nash. Boiragi hona itto khai. Vairagyera nohi bash. Feeding a sannyasi too much breaks his regulative principles. For when a sannyasi eats too much, his renunciation is destroyed. The characteristic of Ramachandra Puri was that first he would induce someone to eat more than necessary, and then he would criticize him. Formerly, when Madhavendra Puri was at the last stage of his life, Ramachandra Puri came to where he was staying. Madhavendra Puri was chanting the holy name of Krishna, and sometimes he would cry, Mathura napainu boli karena krandan. Oh my Lord, I did not get shelter at Mathura. Then Ramachandra Puri was so foolish that he fearlessly dared to instruct his spiritual master. Tumi purna brahmanand koraha shmaran brahmavit hana kene koraha rodan. If you are in full transcendental bliss, he said, you should now remember only Brahman. Why are you crying? Hearing this instruction, Madhavendra Puri, greatly angry, rebuked him by saying, Dur, papishta, bali, bhatsana korila. Get out, you sinful rascal. Because he's feeling transcendental separation from Krishna and crying out in this way. Well, he totally couldn't get that at all, couldn't understand it at all. You see how the illusion covers the soul. And when he became an offender, then he sort of got worse and worse and worse. From like one stage it goes down and down and down. Covered, more covered, more covered.
Is that his initial offence? Is that what you're saying, his initial
Yes, because this was from before. He's saying what happened previously. So he made Guru Aparad, yeah. So that was already, the stage was set for his participation in Chaitanya Leela. Wow, fortunate soul, huh? But anyway, so this was, and then he said, Madhavendra Puri, Krishna na payenu mathura, apana dukke maron ei dite oila jvala. Oh my Lord Krishna, I couldn't reach you, nor could I reach your abode Mathura. I'm dying in my unhappiness, and now this rascal has come to give me more pain. Don't show your face to me. Go anywhere else you like. If I die seeing your face, I shall not achieve the destination of my life. I'm dying without achieving the shelter of Krishna, and therefore I'm greatly unhappy. Now this condemned, foolish rascal has come to instruct me about Brahman. Ramachandra Puri was thus denounced by Madhavendra Puri. Due to his offence, gradually material desire appeared within him. The word purport, the word vasana, material desires, refers to dry speculative knowledge. Such speculative knowledge is only material. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.4, a person without devotional service who simply wants to know things, kevala bodh labdhaye, gains only dry speculative knowledge, but no spiritual profit. Then in the purport there's quite a few different shlokas there, quoting from different shastras on this point. Verse 27, one who is attached to dry speculative knowledge has no relationship with Krishna. His occupation is criticizing Vaishnavas. Thus he is situated in criticism. Yeah, so that was his standard practice, it seems, Ramachandra Puri. It wasn't just a one-off. He became fallen in that way, and he was constantly criticizing others, and particularly Vaishnavas. And because they think the Mayavadis consider devotional service to be mundane, to be karma kanda, fruitive activities. So it's under, they consider it under moksha, dharma, art, karma, moksha, leading to moksha, to liberation. So it's under the modes of material nature. So they have no understanding of transcendental spiritual activity beyond the plane of ordinary liberation. So therefore they criticize the devotees, like Prakashananda. So he also did like that. He said this Chaitanya is a new sannyasi, but he's somehow become misguided, misdirected, and he's just a sentimentalist, dancing and chanting around the streets, and loads of people following him because they like that. Simple, ignorant people, the ignorant, uneducated village people, they like to follow such a person, has no knowledge of Vedanta, and singing and dancing and chanting, very nice, And of course, in that discussion then that followed, Mahaprabhu took a very humble position, sitting in the shoe rack place, and then gradually came into their company and had a talk with Prakashananda. And slowly, actually, it was by the force of his personality, the beauty and sweetness of his personality, as much as his arguments or his explanation, theistic explanation of Vedanta, that changed the heart of Prakashananda. And later on, of course, in front of his disciples, he couldn't show too much. It was a big pride of being sitting on the seat of the Acharya, especially in that, Sampradaya. They call him the Sankaracharya, the successors. But later on, he found out where was Lord Chaitanya, and he followed him, and he met him when he was alone walking in the street, and he fell in his feet and said, I understand now, I thought I had everything, but now I realise you have everything, I've got nothing. It's like that. It's completely... And Mahaprabhu blessed him, gave him the holy name actually, initiated him Hare Krishna mantra.
So is that Chaitanya?
Hmm?
Is that in Chaitanya?
That was from that was from what Srila Govinda Maharaj said. I don't know where it was. Maybe is it here or somewhere else. Yeah. So so this is the effect of aparad. Gradually, a material desire appeared more and more strongly in the heart. So Ishvara Puri, the spiritual master of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, performed service to Madhavendra Puri, cleaning his stool and urine with his own hand. And Ishvara Puri was always chanting the holy name and pastimes of Lord Krishna for Madhavendra Puri to hear. In this way he helped Madhavendra Puri remember the holy name and pastimes of Lord Krishna at the time of death. Pleased with Ishvara Puri, Madhavendra Puri embraced him and gave him the benediction that he would be a great devotee and lover of Krishna. It's like, not that we should think that, Madhavendra Puri, he's a great spiritual master, so not that we should think that he should be needing Ishvara Puri to tell him the pastimes and holy name of Krishna, otherwise he wouldn't remember them at the time of death and he'd be in Maya or something. But just that is all ante narayana smriti, one has to remember the Lord, particularly at the time of death. And so naturally the disciple is telling Krishna, pastimes of Krishna, holy name of Krishna to him. And he blessed him that he would be a great devotee and lover of Krishna. Thus Ishvara Puri became like an ocean of ecstatic love for Krishna, whereas Ramachandra Puri became a dry speculator and a critic of everyone else. Ishvara Puri received the blessing of Madhavendra Puri, whereas Ramachandra Puri received a rebuke from him. Therefore, these two persons are examples of the objects of a great personality's benediction and punishment. Madhavendra Puri instructed the entire world by presenting these two examples. His Divine Grace Madhavendra Puri, the spiritual master of the entire world, thus distributed ecstatic love for Krishna. While passing away from the material world, he chanted the following verse: Aidina dayadanatahe maturanata kadavalokshase hridayan tad aloka kataram toita brahmyati kinkaromyaham. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? In this verse, Madhavendra Puri teaches how to achieve ecstatic love for Krishna by feeling separation from Krishna one becomes spiritually situated. Madhavendra Puri sowed the seed of ecstatic love for Krishna within this material world and then departed. That seed later became a great tree in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I have incidentally described the passing away of Madhavendra Puri. Anyone who hears this must be considered very fortunate. He's telling the story of Ramachandra Puri criticizing the Lord, but that of course reminded him of his spiritual master, Madhavendra Puri. So he wanted to tell that important pastime of his contribution, immense contribution to the Sampradaya, sowing the seed of love of God in Madhurya Prema, and then departing the world with those words, those feelings of separation. Thus Ramchandra Puri stayed at Jagannath Puri. As is customary for those in the renounced order, he would sometimes stay someplace and then go away. There was no certainty of where Ramchandra Puri would take his meal, for he would do so even uninvited. Nevertheless, he was very particular about keeping account of how others were taking their meals. To invite Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would cost 320 kodis, small conch shells. This would provide lunch for 3 people, including Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and sometimes Kashishvara and Govinda. Every day the Lord would take his meal at a different place, and if someone was prepared to pay for a meal, the price was fixed at only 4 pannas. Ramchandra Puri concerned himself with gathering all sorts of information about how the Lord was situated, including his regulative principles, his lunch, his sleep, and his movements. Because Ramachandra Puri was interested only in finding faults, he could not understand the transcendental qualities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His only concern was finding faults, but still he could not find any. At last he found a fault. Sanyasi hana kore misthana bakan e bhoge hoy kaiche indriya varan. How can a person in the renounced order eat so many sweets, he said. If one eats sweets, controlling the senses is very difficult. It's like I've got a brother friend. He's a sannyasi actually. But he always says, he doesn't take any sugar. He says, if I take even one piece of sugar, I'm finished. My senses are going out of control. It's told like that. You can draw your own conclusions of that. In this way, Ramachandra Puri blasphemed the Lord before everyone, but nevertheless he would regularly come to see the Lord every day. When they met, the Lord would offer him respectful obeisances, considering him a godbrother of his spiritual master. Ramachandra Puri's business, however, was to search for faults in the Lord. The Lord knew that Ramchandra was criticizing him before everyone, but whenever Ramchandra came to see him, the Lord offered him respect with great attention. One day, Ramchandra Puri came in the morning to the abode of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Seeing many ants, he said something to criticize the Lord. Last night there was sugar candy here, he said. Therefore ants are wandering about. Oh, this renounced sannyasi is attached to such sense gratification. After speaking in this way, he got up and left. The Lord had heard rumours about Ramchandra Puri's blasphemy. Now he directly heard his fanciful accusations. It actually says, Kalpita Nindan means imaginary blasphemy. Nindan is offence. First offence, right, to the holy name, Sadhu Ninda. And it says Kalpita. That's anyway, it's given in the word for word here. Kalpita. Imaginary. But in the translation, he put fanciful accusations. And verse 51, ants generally crawl about here, there and everywhere. But Ramchandra Puri, imagining faults, criticized the Lord by alleging that there had been sweets in his room. After hearing this criticism, the Lord was doubtful and apprehensive. Therefore he called Govinda and instructed him as follows. Aji hoite bikka amar eitaniyam, binda bhogera ek khoti, pancha gandhar vyanjan. From today on it will be a rule that I shall accept only 1/4 of a pot of Lord Jagannath's prasadam and 5 gandas worth of vegetables. Iabai odika ar kichunahe aniba. Odika anile ama ita na dekiba. If you bring any more than this, you will not see me here anymore. So we mentioned before, remember, I think it was the last time I was here, but sometimes how the Lord would exhibit his mood. It is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, possessor of all opulences, and those opulences are generally described as Sad Aishvarya, 6, wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, renunciation. So in the mood of renunciation, sometimes he could completely be neglectful, even of his devotees. Like he says, you won't see me anymore. And he would sometimes get up even in the night and just disappear from where they were all staying. And even they couldn't find him sometimes. So that's renunciation. At the same time, attachment, so much attachment to his devotees, where he said, I'm the slave of my devotees, and I have no independence. And whatever they say I must do, I have no will of my own in their company. So this is, again, the 2 sides, 2 aspects. Achinta Abed. Govinda relayed this message to all the devotees. When they heard it, they felt as if their heads had been struck by thunderbolts. All the devotees condemned Ramchandra Puri, saying, this sinful man has come here and taken our lives. That day a Brahmin extended an invitation to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Govinda accepted only 5 gandas worth of vegetables and 1/4 of a pot of rice, the Brahmin, in great despair, struck his head with his hand and cried, alas, alas. Because the pot of rice in the puri, it's not very big, is it? Have you seen it? Like a pot for one person, yeah, it's like, that. So like 1/4 of that, it's very small. It'd be like a teacup of rice. Sort of thing. And as you know, Bengalis, they like to eat rice, huge amounts of rice. I remember in the temple in Kolkata, and then when sometimes in the evening, because they would usually have rice at lunch and roti in the evening. I wasn't that keen on the roti, so I always have rice twice in a day, and sometimes maybe you didn't have rice, or the rice had run out or something, and you just have some vegetables, and Doji comes, oh Prabhu, you're fasting. It's like huge mound of vegetables like this, but no rice. Oh, you're fasting.
And more eat for breakfast.
More eat for breakfast. Rice, and more rice.
Only 1/4 pot of
Yeah, very, very upset. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ate only 1/2 of the rice and vegetables, and whatever remained was taken by Govinda. Thus both Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Govinda ate only 1/2 the food they needed. Because of this, all the other devotees gave up eating. The Lord ordered Govinda and Kashishvara, you may both take alms elsewhere to fill your bellies. So don't do it around me, If you want to eat more, you can go somewhere else. In this way, some days passed in great unhappiness. Hearing of all this, Ramachandra Puri went to see the Lord. The Lord offered his obeisances to Ramachandra Puri, worshipping his feet. Then Ramachandra Puri smiled and spoke to the Lord. Sanyashira dharm nahi indriya tarpan Ch.Ch Ch.Ch kare mata udara bharan. It's not the business of a sannyasi to gratify his senses. He should fill his belly some way or other. I've heard that you have cut your eating in half. Indeed, I see that you are skinny. Well, it's only like 2 days, or you do it for 1 day or 2 days. He's telling like that. It's just nonsense, Such dry renunciation is also not the religion of a sannyasi. So now he's criticizing him for not eating enough.
Was this Ramachandra?
Yeah, yeah. So first of all, he gets him to stop eating enough, and then he criticizes him for dry renunciation. It reminds me of in the Gospels, in one part, then Jesus said, they criticized, John the Baptist was the cousin, actual physical cousin, yeah. He tells, you know Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, in his book, Autobiography of a Yogi, he says he has a view that in previous life they were Elijah and Elisha, and in the Old Testament then Elijah was the prophet, and when he was going to be leaving the world, he took his cape, his cloak, and he placed it over the shoulder of Elisha, his disciple, thus bestowing on him the disciplic succession. And so then again reincarnated as Jesus and John the Baptist, but reversed. That's why Jesus said to John, John rather said to Jesus, why you should ask me to baptize you, you should be baptizing me. Right? But Jesus said, no, let it be so, because this is according to the prophecy and the scriptures, so to follow the form of that for the moment, you know. Anyway, and then of course, you know, John was arrested because he criticized Herod, King Herod, the Jewish king. He was a puppet king under the Roman government. And his wife died, so he took up with the wife of his brother, which is forbidden in the scriptures in the Old Testament. And then John in the desert was heavily criticizing him. But like John was an ascetic, they say he wore animal skin and he ate locusts and honey, which from my understanding doesn't mean locust, you know, flying locust. But locust bean is carob bean is also called locust bean. It grows in desert regions, dry areas, and honey. And then he was like appearing like half mad, but the people was coming out in the desert, leaving the city, leaving Jerusalem to come and hear him preach. He was a very powerful preacher. But he said, I'm preparing the way for the Lord, the Messiah. And he said, and I'm not fit to even do the strap of his sandal. And he said, I must decrease, so he must increase, and like this. Anyway, so the point of this was that, in relation to this Elijah and Elisha point, that, where's it coming from here? Yeah, but before that. Oh, yes, about first making him eat more than necessary, and then criticizing him for not being able to control it, for dry renunciation, not eating enough. So then one time after he was killed, beheaded by Herod, John the Baptist, then Jesus said, you criticized John for being an ascetic, for being like a madman living in the desert, and being like a completely renounced person, and yet you criticize me for living with prostitutes and drunkards, and eating in the houses of fallen non-caste people, right? Because you know that was the Pharisees were very upset with that. Jesus, as a rabbi, he shouldn't have been consorting with low-class people like that. But anyway, so he's saying, you know, what can you do? Whatever you do, you'll be criticized, one way or the other. So,
can I just ask a question? Is Ramachandra Puri then? He's a
sannyasi, yeah,
He's a sannyasi Puri
himself, yeah. So then he says, this is Ramachandra, a sannyasi eats as much as necessary to maintain his body, but he doesn't enjoy satisfying his senses materially. Thus, a sannyasi becomes perfect in his spiritual advancement, in knowledge. And then they're quoting Kaviraj Goswami, introducing a verse here from the Bhagavad Gita 6:16 to 17 about how to practice yoga one must be moderate, eating, sleeping, working and recreation. Thus one can become free from material pains by executing mystic yoga. And then Mahaprabhu said very humbly to Ramachandra, I'm just like an ignorant boy and am like your disciple. It's my great fortune that you're instructing me. Hearing this, Ramachandra Puri got up and left. He also heard from various sources that all the devotees of the Lord were eating half as much as usual. The next day, Paramananda Puri and other devotees approached the Lord with great humility and submission. Paramananda Puri said, my godbrother Ramachandra Puri is by nature a bad critic. If you give up eating because of his words, what will be the profit? It's his nature that first he lets one eat as much as desired, and if one doesn't eat more than necessary, with great attention he makes him eat more. And this way he induces one to eat more, and then he directly criticizes him, saying, "You eat so much. How much money do you have in your treasury? And by eating so much, you are spoiling your religious principles. Thus I can understand you have no advancement." It's his business to inquire always about others, how they're eating and conducting their affairs. And then he says, Paramananda Puri, he quotes a verse there from Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto, this in Uddhava Gita. One should see, because of the meeting of material nature and the living entity, the universe is acting uniformly. Thus one should neither praise nor criticize the characteristics or activities of others. And the purport of that is, yes, but you can praise others sometimes. I mean, Krishna conscious-wise, for their service. Show appreciation for that. But this is more like in the ordinary sense. Of the two rules, Ramachandra Puri obeys the first by abandoning praise, but although he knows the second is more prominent, he neglects it by criticizing others. So even in that injunction, the more important is not to criticize. But you're not really supposed to praise. But if you do, sometimes it's not so bad. Materially. Between the former rule and the latter is more important. Even where there are hundreds of good qualities, a critic does not consider them. Rather, he attempts by some trick to point out a fault in those attributes. And the Guru Maharaj was talking about that, and he was saying, why are you going to the rubbish, right? If you're walking down the road and one side is all rubbish thrown on the side of the road, and the other side is a beautiful flower garden, why are you going to the rubbish? Why not go to the flower garden? It's just logic, it's a common sense, it's not a big esoteric principle really. But that will help us and that will save us also. Because the only result is if you have a very critical mentality, it means you're meditating on those faults. What does that mean? What you meditate, as you see, so you become. So those things become indented in your own psyche. So that you don't want. One should therefore not follow the principles of Ramachandra Puri. Nevertheless, I have to say something against him because he's making us unhappy. Why have you given up your eating due to the criticism of Ramachandra Puri? Please accept invitations like before. This is a request of us all. The Lord replied, why are all of you angry at Ramachandra Puri? He's expounding the natural principles of sannyas life. Why are you accusing him? And then he's giving, saying, from the scriptures it says, yes, renunciant is to eat only as much as needed to keep body and soul together. But they were all requesting him continuously to take a full meal, but he still wouldn't do so. And he was still only taking half as much as usual. So this was going on, and for some days. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes accepted Ramachandra Puri as his master and considered himself a servant. And sometimes the Lord, not caring for him, would see him as being just like a straw. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu behaved exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, beyond the restriction of anyone's intelligence. He did whatever he liked, but all his activities were very beautiful. So then Ramachandra Puri left Puri and went to so-called visit some tirthas around. And they felt great relief that he'd left and very happy, like a great burden like a great stone had fallen from their heads to the ground. And everyone was happy again. And then the Lord began accepting invitations as usual and going on with the congregational kirtan, etc. But he says, Kaviraj Goswami, the Lord didn't consider the offences of Ramachandra Puri, for the Lord considered him as spiritual master. So he's following the etiquette there of the Sampradaya, even though he was an offender. by the formal recognition as disciple of his spiritual master. Showing that also. However, his character instructed everyone about the result of offending the spiritual master. The character of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is full of nectar. Hearing about it is pleasing to the ear and mind. Chaitanya Charitra Likki Shunna Ikmane Ona Yase Pabe Prem Sri Krishna Charani. I write about the character of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. O readers, please hear with attention, for thus you will easily receive ecstatic love for the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. Shri Rup Raghunath Padi Jaro Ash Chaitanya Charitamrit Kohi Krishna Das. Praying the lotus feet of Shri Rup and Shri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit, following in their footsteps. Jai. That was it, yeah. No, I just paraphrased some of them. But
What happened to Ramachandra's living then?
don't know.
Is there a sense of,
What happened after that?
was he corrected or was he?
Well, I don't know. Did you know? Does it say after that anymore?
That's been one of my big questions.
Oh, big question.
I asked Shuddha Shava, like, because you hear in other cases, like Chapa Gopa, he got leprosy.
Yeah.
Like you want to hear some gruesome punishment
Exactly.
he got.
You didn't get.
But I remember I asked Shuddha Shava, and I liked his answer. He said, just the fact that he came so close to Mahaprabhu and wasn't able to appreciate it,
Yeah.
that's enough of a
That's not
punishment.
for sure.
Like, we don't need to know more than that.
And I guess if he's already offended Madhavendra Puri, and
Yeah.
he's still going around doing that,
Yeah.
then
And then also another thing we can't rule out, right, is that it could be Leela, right?
I'm sure.
Like, maybe he's an eternal associate and this is all to illustrate something, right?
is he ever mentioned in any of the...
I don't know if he's meant, maybe he is, I don't know.
Can I ask a more general question? Or do you want to just move on to... if you want to move on, I'll shut up.
Can you keep it to the end?
Yeah, for sure.
And then I'll save this.
It's relating to the...
Yeah, well, this is all very...
Well, I mean, it depends how late you want to go, but normally we finish at 8.
We'll just see how, because I just want to read this. It's not very long, you know.
Yeah, I'll shut up then, yeah. Later. I'll ask you at dinner.
Probably a bit.
I
No.
mean prashadam, I mean, not dinner. sorry, first dinner.
So Guru Maharaj is talking, this is in the middle of a talk, the middle of a talk he gave, and he's talking about Shraddha, and he says, Srila Guru Maharaj speaking, faith always asks us to approach, to go towards the higher, not the lower. The basis of our faith in every way, he, my guardian, my well-wisher, is superior. That the basis of our faith will be that. The scientist, the scientific brain, is always seeking for some object. Oh, in its research, mean the scientific brain, not necessarily just specifically the scientist like Einstein, means the brain of the conditioned soul is always seeking in its research for some object which they can command and utilize. But faith, real faith, Shraddha, is always connected with the substance which is higher in all respects than the searcher, the inquirer himself. There's in the other section I'm doing about the 5 kinds of knowledge. I'm talking about the 3rd step, 1, 2, 3, 4th step, adoksaja, that the subjective existence of the soul, the Atma, and that there is, I am the seer, the feeler, the knower, the inquirer, but there's above me, who sees me, who knows me, who feels me, this. Otherwise the material world, because it's Indriyani paran ahur, Indriya paran mana, so it's the senses, and then above the senses, the material, matter, let's say, or sense objects, and then above them the senses, and then the mind, intelligence, the soul. So we think that we're the masters of Maya, or matter, which in a sense we are as being conscious of the material world. So just as we are subject to the object of the material world, So we are like as objects to the super subject. So this idea, so Shraddha is always connected with a substance higher in all respects than the searcher, the inquirer himself. And proper guidance in faith is also necessary, and that is given from the higher level, that such will be the nature of our inquiry, our search. And then he quotes from Bhagavad Gita 4:34. It will be with submission, pranipat, relevant inquiry, pariprashna, sincere service, seva. And the Upanishads also, Shabde Pareta Nishnatam, verse. And from Srimad Bhagavatam also. So we should be very attentive to all these points. We should search within ourselves whether we are really approaching him properly. We may have faith, or we may think we have faith, of course. But is it proper faith? Or is it only credulity? They're not the same. We must consider this. Is our searching bona fide? Is it based on real Shraddha, real faith? Or is it something adulterated? There are signs, symptoms of real faith. And we have to search these out for our guidance. This is very, very important. Because we are taking a risk. We are dissatisfied with our present acquisition. And we're taking a risk to jump towards a higher prospect. As far as is possible by us, we must be very attentive, very careful that we are taking the proper guidance. Our present reasoning ability is not sufficient to take us, to our higher prospect. But beyond that, Shraddha, faith is essential. Still, as far as possible, we will apply our reasoning in the search. So this is a thing to understand. He's saying that reason is not sufficient, and Shraddha can take further, but still we're to use our reason. But our reasoning will tell us what is the limit of our reasoning, right? So he's giving an example. When I first came to the Gaudiya Math, I heard from them, there's a verse here, you probably know it, I don't know it, Aprakrita Vastunai, something. Yeah, is that the whole verse?
No, there's another line.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's the other line, I just couldn't hear it.
Is it in the Quran?
Okay, it might be in the Gaudiya Kanta, I have to look it up. Aprakrita Vastunai, and then the last verse, Aprakrita Gocha. That the transcendental subject does not come within a grasp of our intelligence. And I thought, yes, it is so, but still, now that I want to, he says, throw myself into that association, so I also put surrender myself fully in that association, not meaning necessarily like institutional associations, sadhu sangha, could be both also. So I'm putting with a small a. As far as possible.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because we have our in-house connotation of things, but like outside people, when you say association, it means something else.
Yes, yes.
It's difficult.
We might do a footnote there as well. So it's going to be with some annotations and footnotes when I do this, to kind of explain a few things as well.
In parlance, you can say, the association of friends or people.
You can say that, yeah.
Yeah, people get that. It's not
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
I mean, we use it very.
If it was a capital A,
Yeah.
if you put capital A, it means
like
an association.
or something like that.
Yeah, like RAC, BBC, whatever, yeah. It's a company. So he's saying, with his intelligence, he's saying, still when I want to throw myself into that association as far as possible, I shall attempt with my reasoning intelligence to understand this truth. Because now I'm going to jump into something which will be beyond my control and my calculation. So we must be particular to try to understand what is Shraddha, faith proper, to avoid misguidance. But even if we are proceeding in the proper line, it may be that some obstacle will come in the way, some unknown hindrance may come to trouble us and delay our advancement. But still, as much as possible, we shall be always careful in this matter. And we may see that amongst our own group who are attempting to approach the same goal, some are falling down by our side, but we must continue to stand. When we are proceeding in an organized way, in association, again, same thing, in association, this is not impossible. We can see this. Some are standing, some going down, others taking rest or going back, and some are leaving the campaign altogether. So many things are occurring around us, but still we should go forward. And for that, what will be our capital? How will I continue when I find that so many cannot? When many cannot go on, still I shall have to do so. And that is depending on our faith. So much faith and so much goodwill we will have to collect as our capital. And then quote, like, this is what we should be thinking. Many of us began together on the path in our advancement, and now so many are going back, but I shall have to go on. I shall have to strengthen my energy and go forward. Alone I shall go. Our faith should be so strong and so solid and substantial. Whatever difficulties I may find on my way, I must cross over them by the grace of my Lord. In this way, we must make ourselves fit for exclusive devotion. And always we shall try to find out higher association, but sometimes it may seem that there is no association and we are alone. But still we must go ahead. And then the beacon lights, it means the lives and examples of great devotees, they are indispensable for us. Because progress means eliminating something and accepting something. Eliminating something and accepting another. So we must be able to see that there are so many others who can give me good association, who can help my progress in life. With this eye open, we shall go forward. So there's that part. And then he goes on to talk about different gradation, ontological gradation, different sampradayas, Ramananda, Samvada, etc. So there's that part. And there's one more bit here. It's got disjointed from there. No, there is. Get my paper clip. This is one I prepared earlier. I prepared them in order for maximum impact, you see. Sorry. Okay, this one actually was interesting because it was actually by Giri Maharaj, the one from New York, yeah? But he, of course, it's 1983, so he's very young. His voice is like very young, sounds very... And he asked this question, and Guru Maharaj says, "Who is he?" And so he says, "Giri Maharaj." And he sort of chuckles. And they all like laugh, like, what's the joke? I don't know. But what he actually asked was, because Guru Maharaj has been talking about how we're doing relief work, and those who've been part of a spiritual institution and have left, we all know who we're talking about, mainly, but could be others also, doing relief work to help them, that we're not starting a new separate thing with any separate teaching or philosophy, but doing relief work for them, and with also some ontological addition, helpful addition. But then this Giri Maharaj, he says, it seems that even though we are working in a spirit of relief, they take it as a fight or competition with them. How can we overcome that? So meaning, even though we're with all goodwill coming, but they're taking it as an opposition. But when I do it to make it for the book, I'm going to rephrase that question. I'm going to put a made-up question, right? Have you seen, there's two books. One is Bhakti Thakur's teachings, one is Saraswati Thakur's teachings, published in ISKCON. Yeah, and they've given his talk, but they've inserted the questions relevant to what he's talking, fit to the answer that he's giving. So in the same way, something like that, because the answer he gives is relevant. It's not just for preachers, like preaching to the public. It's an answer which is relevant to whenever we find opposition from people, from the environment, and etc. So the answer Guru Maharaj gives here, that will help us to particularly look for another plane. So he could have answered in so many different ways. He could have said, well, you should do like this, you should do like that, sort of practical tips, things like that. But he's giving a very nice answer. He said, that will help us to particularly look for another plane, the decision, absolute decision, will come from above us, from the upper level. Okay, so I have to insert in there, decision about what? It means decision about what will come, what is coming to us as opposition. So the absolute decision about that will come from, he said higher plane, but I don't want to say that twice. Sounds not very... So say from the upper level, and it will help us to search for the higher plane more intensely. We'll have to examine ourselves whether the path I've taken, is it only imagination, or is there reality there? That Krishna is everything and he protects his devotees, quote unquote. Is all this imagination to me? Is it only theoretical, or is it real? We must make experiments with this truth in our own life, and we'll make progress, step by step. Such tests will be extended to us by Krishna himself. Do you have faith in me as absolute? Is your faith really in me or in any other potency that they are your master? Is your faith only lip deep? I have to quote, when you say that Krishna is everything, he is overall, is it a lip deep statement? Or does it really come from your heart and conscience? To say nothing can be done without his consent, nothing can happen without his will, is this all imaginary propaganda? Or is it real? Is it a reality to live in and to live on, or only something to preach? In the preaching field, to be eager for the fight, that is not a very high stage. To ignore the fight, let it go on in its own way, and I shall be busy with my own things, my own duties. I added there my own duties, my own things. What's that? Doing the washing up, buying some potatoes. It means, my own service, my own duties. The opposing elements, they will come as a consequence of my previous life's actions. Okay, that's ambiguous, previous life. Just means this life, my previous... We say in my previous incarnation, when I was like a doctor, a tailor, or a beggarman, or a thief, and now I'm come to the association of devotees, right? Or could be previous life also. But I have to think about that, how to do it. So let them come, these opposing elements. But on my backside, I will say backside, so back hyphen side. That's not my backside. If you put it in one word, it doesn't look very well in English. And not in the front. We shall show our back to them, and many wounds may come to our back, but in the front there will be peace and Krishna, and we shall make progress toward that side, toward Krishna. I shall go forwards towards Krishna, and the results of my previous activity they may attack in my back. Ignoring them, I shall make progress towards my front. Krishna is everything, but that must be realized as truth within me. Otherwise, what value has it got? It is only lip-deep propaganda. There must be life within us to back this preaching. The words that come from our mouth must be backed by spiritual realization that Krishna is all. Okay, that's that section. But then there's it's just 1983, conversation with devotees, yeah.
No, I'm just because I would like to hear. You don't have it noted there.
Yeah, I've got it written down. I have to do that, the reference, I'll totally lose track of it.
Which one is it?
830330, which I guess means 30th of March.
How are you listening to the... Where are you listening to?
Akash Vani. No, I've got a gizmo. Prabhu gave me his thing. Yeah. But the next section is very hard, Actually, it's very... it's so hard, I don't even know if I would even put it in the book, And it's about... He tells the example, like following on from what he's been saying there, is it real, Our understanding of Krishna. I was going to entitle the section of the chapter quote, "How deep is your love?" You know, "How deep is your love?" Na, na, na. No, that's okay. Quote, "How deep is your love?" You don't have to refer it to that, but that's what I thought.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, it's a song by the Bee Gees. How deep is your love? Na, na, na.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. You must have heard of the Bee Gees, no?
I've heard of them.
Okay.
That's part of
I
it.
think they're all dead now, are they? Maybe there's one left.
No, I think there's one.
At least two of them died, but yeah. They sang in very high voices, you know, like soprano voices. Something unique, yeah. No, but anyway, the next part he goes on and he tells a story in time of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and there was a temple, a Hindu temple somewhere in North India, up in towards the Himalayas somewhere, at the time of the British, yeah, and the British Army, they wanted to come and see that, or maybe investigate something in the temple, so they sent one guy there, a soldier there, and they wouldn't let him in the temple. Oh, he's Mlech, you know, he can't come in, Hindu temple, but he's representing British Army, you know, so forcibly he entered, and they killed him, they murdered him.
Wow.
Right, so the news came back to the British camp, and they sent the whole platoon of soldiers, and they basically smashed the temple, and smashed the deities, broke the deities. And so Guru Maharaj then is asking, you know, like, he's not saying, but my thing is, you know, how to adjust, you know. Oh, does that mean, oh, they smashed the deities? Yes, we believe the deity, the Lord, is non-different, is directly deity himself. You know, in Jaiva Dharma, you have the first view. It's a stone statue, wood statue, but some spirit, divine spirit, has entered, or is representing. It's representing divinity, but it's just a statue. First level. Second, the actual spirit of divinity is somehow in the statue, in some way. Second, and third is actually the Lord himself, Archa Vigraha, non-different form of the Lord. Okay, so that's the view we take, you know, as Vaishnavas. And we offer all respect, and it's a form of the Lord, everything. And the deity also, Ch.Ch. Gopal, leaving the altar, following his devotee down the road, where's my sweet rice, all these things. So now we see deity is smashed. So is that it over? Then God has been killed? No. You see, so this is, I'm just working on that part. It's very, how deep is your love? You know, how deep is your vision? What eye are you seeing with? Achinta Beda Bed. So yes, the Lord is there, but does that mean smashing the deity is smashing the Lord? No, of course not. Cannot be like that. But at the same time, so this is a thing, and that's the next section, but I haven't put that in, so... Well, I guess we should finish. There was one more bit, but we can finish there.
What about
Question.
The question was related to it's a very general question, but it's about it's not that general, but it was about the place of, so we hear about Vrindavan and Navadvip, you know, and dance in this world, and then it's not the place of Puri. Just got me thinking about, like, here Goloka, Vrindavan, you know, Navadvip, and the you know, Algarya, Buddha, etc. But what is the place of Puri in the divine realm? That Mahaprabhu's pastime to all eternal Leela. I don't know.
Of course, it must be eternal.
Is it like, there's
Oh, you mean, is it in Golok?
Because you only ever,
You hear about Navadvip and Vrindavan.
Yeah, and then we never worship Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi or any of these things, only like this. Is
I don't know, but I understand it's somewhat related in Dwarka Leela. Because yeah, Jagannath being, you know, mixed Vrindavan and Dwarka Krishna, right?
Yes.
So Dwarka Leela, that's also...
But Mahaprabhu is there.
So that's also, is that also in Golok then? Dwarka, Mathura,
Yeah.
and like that, is it?
But
It must be because you have Vrindavan, you have, you know, Golok,
yes.
and then you have, you know, Ayodhya
Yes.
and Vaikuntha. So all Ramachandra Leela in Ayodhya. So it must be all the Leela of Krishna in Golok.
In Golok. And
Yeah.
Mahaprabhu.
And Mahaprabhu.
this is not like some kind of like, I don't know, it's like Mahaprabhu's most intense pastimes are taking place there. But it's, I don't know, you know what I mean? Anyways, I just wonder.
I don't know, it's beyond my understanding. I don't know. I remember one time when devotee was, because Brahma Samhita, it's a very important book. And then, the two, they say, Mahaprabhu brought the two books from South India. Actually believe that Mahaprabhu wrote Brahma Samhita himself, which some people say. Bhaktivinoda in his introduction says, even if you believe that, that's okay too, because what could be better than that? A book penned by Mahaprabhu himself. But anyway, so Brahma Samhita, the theology of Krishna consciousness, and Krishna Karnamrita, Rasa Tattva, Bilva Mangathakul's Krishna Karnamrita. So, and Brahma Samhita then, Govinda Maharaj said, he was there, of course, and he knew about it, and he looked at it, but one time he was asking a question to Guru Maharaj, he was, have you not read Brahma Samhita? All these questions are answered. This was on the point of, about the introduction of the jivas into the material world, into the Mahatattva, like Mahavishnu, the glance of Mahavishnu. So the glance of Mahavishnu, which is like non-different from himself, but also different, isn't it? So different and non-different. So that glance, that look over Maya, takes the form of Shambhu, Shiva, the lingam, and through that the jivas are injected into Maya, the womb of Maya. And this, then there's a commentary there by Jiva Goswami and so on. But I've totally forgotten why I was saying that. Again, on the point.
But that got me thinking, though, that in the commentary of that text, you hear in the explanation of the divine.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so these things at a certain point, it's becomes very incomprehensible to human reason, and that's why it's called a Ch.Ch. But of course, we have the tendency, although we're reading it's a Ch.Ch., we have the tendency to try to understand it. But hello, you've just said it's a Ch.Ch. So, of course, but again, human reason, also intellect, to some degree, needs to be satisfied. It's like the brain and the heart, And so that commentary about Golok and Gokul is there. That saying, actually, Gokul is above Golok. I mean, how can you understand it? Even the Golok is in the spiritual, and Gokul is the pastimes on earth of Krishna. And then this devotee asked Guru Maharaj, I read in Brahma Samhita that about Golok, and there's this hexagonal hemisphere, and like this, and a lotus with this, that, and he just said, he basically closed him down, said, hey, don't think of that, it's not going to, even if you get it, it doesn't make any sense.
But this is not a question about like the details of this so much, it's more like just a general understanding about when we're hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yeah.
And it is explained very sort of course it's all inconceivable, but it is dealt with very explicitly.
Yeah.
Sort of Vrindavan and
it is also mentioned like that Mahaprabhu sees like Chata Parva and his Govardhan, he sees the sea as Jamuna. There's also that comment of Maharaj that Puri, Vrindavan, Navadip, they're like three rooms in the same house, right? Isn't there some comment?
So it may be that it's like that they're interpenetrating in an inconceivable way. Like, even materially, like the astral world, this is talking materially, right? 7 planes of, in theosophy and all that. So like the astral world is like interpenetrating this physical plane. So like they say, we're here now in this room, but we might be sitting in the middle of a road, an astral road somewhere, with traffic going past through. Yeah, and that's just material, right? And what to speak of the spiritual example.
We're hearing these things, and this is Leela that's taking place within this realm of manifest here. But also it's eternal as well. So I don't know,
Well, that's right. No, we can get some idea by analogy from the material side. By analogy, like Guru said, what's the expression used? Distant similarity, categorical difference. So there is a distant similarity. So we can, and that example, like in Revealed Truth, there, he's saying about ghost theory. Saying how a ghost in the astral world, that, it's the opposite to here. Whereas I can see what's right in front of me, but like even on the other side of that wall, or maybe 50 meters or 100 meters, I can't see. But when you cross over in the subtle world, it's the opposite. What is in front of you, you can't see that. So he's saying, then Gurudev is saying, so if I ask the ghost, oh, who's sitting in front of me here now? And the ghost will say, oh, just give me a moment. And he has to go away like 50 miles, 100 miles, and then come back and say, oh, there is so-and-so. Because he had to go from that distance to see. So he was using that example, saying, of course, transcendental theory is not ghost theory, but to understand this, when he asked Guru Maharaj, how is it that when Radharani goes to Radhakund, is 14 miles or something from Varshana, but in the Shastras when it's described, it says, oh, you should walk there like in 5 minutes. And then she walked through the forest and arrived at, it was like 14 miles, and he said, but she didn't have a helicopter. His type of humour. See? Didn't have a helicopter or even a motorbike. But, Guru Maharaj's explanation was, in the spiritual world, everything is possible. And it can expand and contract according to the necessity of seva. So a big distance can become very small, or small can become very big. And in time also, space and time, spiritual space and time. So all these things. And yet, in the aprakrita realm, it is all seeming very normal, very natural. It's not like, oh, this is all supernatural stuff going on here. Like, as it would be from our point of view, it's like, it's very normal, very natural things. But everything is necessitated for service, right, by Yoga Maya, mystically. But on the surface, just looking normal. Yeah. So Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's, death personified is afraid of Krishna. But he's afraid of his mother, Yashoda. He's running away from her. Like that.
Right, but is it that in different times when Mahaprabhu comes to bring the Yuga Dharma only, he's not staying for 15 years at Puri. He ends his pastimes after, like a distribution of the holy name.
Yeah, you mean the Puri Leela isn't,
Yeah.
that's only in, is that so? Once in every Kali
I
Yuga?
find that very bizarre. No, just the idea of Mahaprabhu, just Mahaprabhu not doing just a Yuga Dharma.
Just like a Grihastha.
It's a very bizarre concept.
Apparently he's green.
He's green. It's just like,
Is it Grihastha, Navadvip? No, what is it?
Yeah.
Is it Adi Leela pastime?
Yeah.
And leave.
And then leave. No, like Mahaprabhu just doing Yuga Dharma is a bit kind of, also like, seems to defeat the purpose of, I don't know, Mahaprabhu.
That's because we've been spoiled.
Yeah.
By this,
All these high things. Would you like to take us into the Hariharaya, or who's going to be chanting? Whoever would like to do
I've
it.
done so much maybe today.
Well, we don't give you that. Take your time.
What page is it on? I was thinking, it's a new version of this would be like, I think, really essential.
That's it, isn't it?
I mean, there is one, but for some reason that wasn't. There had been, I think, 2 more editions.
No, I mean, like, just completely, just like,
The design.
retranslating the whole thing.
Oh, retranslate.
Is Sadhu Priya still
You
going?
know we're live right
Oh, sorry.
Is he still going on?
But I mean, it's
Sorry.
That was second day.
Sorry.
I'm not officially representing
No, but-
Mark, this is just my own personal opinion.
Sorry, I don't know. I want to quickly ask.
We
Quick
can't.
question. Sadhu Priya, is he still around, going on?
He is.
The Australian, right, who did the
I
books?
just saw him a few weeks
Okay.
ago. Yeah.
And his friend, who was his friend?
Unsufficient.
The other one, Isha Bandhu, yeah. So, character, yeah. God, yeah.
What is it?
60.
Do you want the cartels?
No, yeah,
No, you can focus on him now.
Hare Hare Namo Krishna.